2 chairs. 1 low table. No applause to hide behind, just soft lights, a camera's red eye, and a prince who no longer wears a crown. She came with questions and grace. He came with confidence, 1 degree too warm. For the first few minutes, they traded pleasantries. Then, like steam building beneath a sealed kettle, the air began to change. By the time anyone noticed, it was already whistling. The studio was dressed to resemble a living room that read the news. Deep red curtains, a brass lamp on a credenza, a rug that whispered rather than bragged. 2 modern armchairs faced each other, a pair of water glasses resting neatly on coasters between them. No audience. No laughter track. Only the hum of lights and the faint tick of a distant clock, the kind of silence that appears when everyone's trying too hard to be polite. Norah O'Donnell arrived first. Her posture easy, the practiced calm of someone who's weathered senators and storms. She greeted the crew, checked her notes, and sat with the composure of a host who wanted a conversation, not a conquest. When the floor manager counted down, she turned to camera, warmth stitched into precision. Good evening. Tonight, a candid conversation with Prince Harry, author, veteran, father. We'll talk about life in America, purpose, and what comes next. She glanced left, inviting him into frame. Harry, welcome. He entered with a magazine cover smile and a stride that didn't ask permission. The open collar, the casual knit, every detail whispered California. He shook her hand like the moment was already trending. Good to be here, he said, settling into the chair, ankle crossed over knee. The set felt like a lounge where tough questions sipped tea. Norah smiled. We like people to feel at home. Oh, I do, he replied lightly. I'm rather good at finding new homes, as you might have noticed. The tally light went solid red. Let's start simple, Norah began. How are you finding life in America, away from the institution and all that comes with it? Harry's smile tilted toward a smirk. The sun's warmer, the morning's quieter, and the traffic ignores titles. I like that. It's refreshing not to bow to calendars designed a century ago, so no regrets. He toyed with the rim of his glass. One can miss a building without missing the locks on the doors. I suppose I miss familiarity. Tradition occasionally has a pleasant scent, but I sleep well. He let the line hang. You don't need a palace to live like a king. Norah's eyes flickered, courteous but alert. That's a striking phrase. What does living like a king mean to you now? Autonomy, he said simply. Choosing where I go, who I speak to, which causes deserve a microphone. Crowns are heavy, because everyone wants to hang their expectations on them. I'm lighter now. She nodded, letting the thought breathe. You've built a life here, projects, philanthropy, writing. Still, you're a figure people associate with the UK. Do you feel American yet? I feel human, he replied quickly. Labels are for shelves. Fair enough. A small smile. Let's talk about visibility. Life here keeps you in the spotlight. Do you ever wish for anonymity? Harry's mouth curved. Anonymity's a lovely fantasy, for people who never had to use it. I'm recognizable. That's a fact. But visibility can be harnessed if you're clever. I'm the first hairline crack. Norah smoothed her notes with a fingertip. Being clever with visibility can look like control to some. Control, he countered, still pleasant, is what you call it when someone refuses to be controlled. She didn't push, yet. How's the day-to-day? Coffee runs, school drop-offs, ordinary things? Brilliantly ordinary, he said. I know which barista spells my name right. That's progress. Is there anything you miss from your previous life? He paused. Ceremonies were grand. There's a charge in history you can't replicate. Sometimes I miss the echo of marble, but not the echo of judgment. Norah folded the thought into a nod. I want to ask gently about family. You've written about grief, about your mother. Does distance from the UK, from the institution, change that grief? His smile thinned. Grief doesn't care about geography. It just changes its shoes. My mother is the voice in the quiet moments, the reminder to choose compassion over performance. And your brother? Norah asked, tone careful. People always wonder if time brings healing. Harry's jaw moved once, almost imperceptibly. People always wonder, he echoed. Wondering is free, he said evenly. So are assumptions. My relationships are mine. He took a sip of water. Next question. Norah accepted the boundary with grace, shifting lanes without missing rhythm. Your wife is often in the public eye. Some argue the attention fuels the conversation. Others say it distorts it. How do you both navigate that? He leaned back, the easy confidence returning. We navigate quite well, he said. We're not tour guides for strangers' expectations. Being in the public eye is a phrase the public enjoys. It makes them feel invited. They aren't. Is it stressful? She asked, still soft. Everything worth doing is stressful, he said. Ask any pilot in a storm, you keep the nose level and fly your plan. The room seemed to hold its breath. Norah offered a gentler thread. Your children, without details, how do you think about raising them with so much attention? Harry's expression softened, though his composure stayed high. We raise them to know their names before anyone else tells them who they are, he said. We teach them that kindness outranks titles, a small beat, and we make very good pancakes on Sundays. That's the core of civilization, Norah laughed, genuine. That might be the quote of the night. I have a few, he replied with a flash of that practiced magazine cover grin. People tend to collect them. She set one of her cards aside. The conversation had remained civil, but the air had shifted. He was answering from a balcony, not a seat. Let's talk purpose, she said. You've served, you've advocated for mental health, for veterans, for conservation. What's the mission right now? Impact without permission, he said. I'm tired of rooms where change needs a chaperone. If I can build something faster out here than in there, I will. Some would say your resources and reach came from in there, Norah observed gently. Some would be correct, he allowed, a sharper edge appearing beneath the charm. And some forget the cost attached to those resources. Funny how people tally the gifts and not the invoice. Norah's tone stayed even. That's fair. Do you ever feel a pullback? Not to roles, but to reconciliation, your grandmother, your country, family, tradition? Yes, he said, surprising them both with the speed of it. I feel a pull to history. I feel a pull to not repeat it. The corner of his mouth lifted. I said I miss marble. I didn't say I miss being a statue. She sat with that, then tried another door. Looking ahead, more books, more series, maybe expansion of your foundation. People are curious. People are nosy, he said lightly. Curiosity is nosiness with better manners. I'll announce things when they're real, not when someone needs a headline. Do you worry withholding fuel speculation? I worry feeding it creates addiction, he replied. If I give you crumbs, you'll ask for cake. If I give you cake, you'll want the recipe. I'm not a bakery. Norah smiled despite herself. You've got a metaphor for everything. I've had practice, he said. Comes with being turned into one. The clock ticked again. The crew was perfectly still. Norah's professionalism held, immaculate as ever, but she could feel the altitude of his answers, a thin air superiority that made every landing rough. She tried one more gentle curve. Last one before the break, she said. When you switch off the cameras and walk back into your house, what grounds you? He didn't hesitate. The small things, he said. A toy on the stairs. A dog that refuses to understand royalty. The very American ritual of someone asking, without irony, how my day was. He paused, then let the sting in. And knowing that if I want a crown, there's a paper one in a craft drawer. The real ones never fit. On that note, Norah said evenly, we'll take a brief pause. When we return, more with Prince Harry on service, media, and what living like a king really looks like. The tally light faded. A makeup artist drifted in and out like a whisper. Harry glanced toward the camera lens as though checking his reflection in it. Norah took a sip of water, then looked at him with the kind of kindness that carried a spine. Thank you, she said softly. You're generous with answers, he smiled, all charm. I'm generous when the questions deserve it, it was polite. It wasn't kind. The next segment would test whether politeness could survive altitude. When the red light blinked alive again, the air had changed. Harry leaned slightly forward now, elbows resting on the armrests, one ankle still perched on the opposite knee. Casual, confident, and just a touch too self-satisfied. Norah didn't flinch. Her posture remained perfect, her tone even. Welcome back, she said smoothly. We're continuing our conversation with Prince Harry, talking about life, purpose, and family. Harry, she began, how would you describe this new chapter of your life here in the U.S.? He gave a low chuckle, that trace of irony already glinting in his tone. Ah, the new chapter. The phrase everyone uses when they want to avoid saying you've left the castle. Let's just say America's been Educational. There's freedom here, an honest kind of air. Though sometimes, he added with a half-smile, I wonder if I traded a crown for a circus. Norah's lips curved slightly. That's an interesting way to put it. You seem to have embraced public life here in a different way. It's public life without public duty, he said. The difference is refreshing. I wake up when I choose, not when a calendar tells me to wave. Her professional smile stayed intact. You've always spoken about mental health and service. Do you still feel connected to those missions? I feel connected to truth, he said. Whether that truth is served in a palace or a podcast doesn't matter. Service doesn't require ceremony. Norah nodded. True. But you've also said purpose and privilege are connected. Do you ever miss the structure? The sense of duty that came with your royal role? Harry exhaled through a grin that couldn't quite hide the arrogance beneath. Miss it. Sometimes I miss the idea of it. The clean uniforms, the medals, the history. But the reality was bureaucracy in a tuxedo. I serve now in ways that actually change lives, not headlines. Do you ever miss your family? Norah asked softly. For a fraction of a second, his smile faltered. Family is complicated, isn't it? He said. Mine just happens to come with portraits in museums. That's fair, she said gently. Still, you've spoken about your mother, Princess Diana, many times. Does her memory still guide you? The smirk returned, thinner this time. I suppose people expect me to say yes. But my mother doesn't need to guide me. I'm not a child wandering corridors anymore. I think she'd appreciate that I'm doing things my way, even if the tabloids can't handle it. Norah's expression didn't change. And your brother? There's been so much speculation about your relationship with Prince William. Harry sighed theatrically. Ah, yes, the eternal question. Look, Norah, brothers fight. Ours just happens to make front-page news. The media's obsession with reconciliation is exhausting. We'll speak when it makes sense to us, not when the world wants a photo op. That's understandable, Norah said calmly. But do you ever wish things were simpler between you? I wish people stopped wishing things on my behalf, he said curtly. Simplicity doesn't exist when you're born into spectacle. The tone had sharpened. Norah pressed her lips together briefly, regrouping. Then carefully, let's talk about Meghan for a moment. She's a public figure in her own right, and many admire the work you've done together. Others say she's faced an intense level of scrutiny. Harry's laugh came quick, sharp and dismissive. Scrutiny? That's a polite way of saying harassment, isn't it? People love to analyze what they can't understand. My wife's dealt with more nonsense than most politicians. Yet here she is, still standing, still shining. Norah's voice softened. She's certainly a strong presence. Some critics argue she's too visible, too outspoken. And men aren't, he cut in, voice edged. Funny, isn't it? When a woman speaks clearly, she's called difficult. My wife's visibility isn't the problem. It's people's fragility around strong women, that is. Norah nodded, keeping her tone neutral. It's a fair point. But do you ever worry that both of you being so public makes privacy difficult? His grin returned, smug again. We're public on our own terms, Norah. There's a difference between being seen and being sold. I decide what gets shared. That's the modern crown. The modern crown, Norah repeated softly. That's quite a phrase, he smiled, satisfied. You can borrow it if you'd like. I seem to provide good sound bites. Norah gave a polite laugh, though her eyes told a different story, one of quiet endurance. Speaking of privacy, she continued, what's life like for your children in California? Harry's tone softened slightly, though the confidence stayed. Harry's tone softened just a fraction. They're brilliant, he said. Curious. Still innocent enough not to care about any of this nonsense. I just want them to grow up believing titles mean nothing and truth means everything. That's admirable, Norah replied evenly. And your career now? You've written books, launched initiatives. What's next? Harry leaned back, arms folding across his chest, a faint smirk tugging at his mouth. Oh, I've got plans, he said. But unlike most people who talk about them before doing them, I actually execute. I don't need to broadcast every step to stay relevant. Norah's composure slipped just slightly. Her tone cooled. That may be true, she said, but transparency can help people understand your mission. Transparency is overrated, he countered smoothly. People don't want truth, they want theater. I stopped auditioning. A silence followed, taut and electric. Norah set down her note cards, folding her hands neatly in her lap. Harry, she said, her voice calm but edged with something firmer now. May I ask something candidly? Always, he said, his charm wrapping around the word like silk. Do you realize how you sound sometimes? He blinked, eyebrows rising. How I sound? Yes, she said softly. You speak about compassion, yet your tone often carries a distance, almost superiority. Harry's smile came slow and deliberate. Well, he said lightly, when you've lived at the top, everything else does tend to feel like a step down, doesn't it? The air froze. Even he seemed to register the weight of what he'd just said. Nora's expression remained poised, her voice low. That's quite a statement. It's an honest one, he replied, leaning forward as if daring her to challenge it. The red tally light blinked off. Another break, but no one moved. The silence lingered, heavy, charged. Norah drew a steady breath, patience taut as wire. Harry reclined again, faintly amused by the tension he'd created. When the cameras came back, the atmosphere had shifted. Norah straightened, her notes untouched. Harry sat loose, one arm draped over the chair, a smile resting on his face like armor. Welcome back, Norah began, her professionalism restored. We're here with Prince Harry, discussing life, purpose, and the weight of legacy. Legacy, he echoed, tasting the word. Funny thing that. Usually code for what will history forgive you for? Perhaps, Norah said lightly. But it's also about how we choose to be remembered. I'm not concerned with remembrance, he said sharply. I'm not a statue waiting for pigeons. I'm alive. I act. The line landed with deliberate flair. Norah paused, recognizing that every word was another performance, measured, self-conscious, steeped in ego. Still, she held her calm. Earlier you mentioned freedom and control, she continued. Some critics say your search for control has made you more guarded, maybe even combative, especially with the media. Do you think there's truth in that? Harry laughed under his breath. Critics love to psychoanalyze people they've never met. It's adorable. I'm not combative, I'm just unwilling to be manipulated. There's a difference. I understand, Norah said, nodding slowly. But some might say you've gone from avoiding the spotlight to controlling it completely. He smiled, that same flash of charm and defiance. Wouldn't you if you could? Everyone wants the microphone. I just happen to own mine. Norah hesitated, then steadied herself. Harry, you've spoken openly about your struggles. With the press, with your own mental health. Do you think that defensiveness might be part of that? Maybe a way of protecting yourself, but also something that distances people? His eyes cooled. You're very good at wrapping accusations in compassion, he said. It's almost poetic. I'm not accusing, she said quietly. I'm observing. Harry let out a low chuckle. Right. Observing, like a hunter with binoculars. The tension thickened until it felt almost audible. Norah didn't waver. You mentioned earlier that you live like a king here in America, she said steadily. Do you think that perception, that sense of superiority might be why some people struggle to relate to you now? His smile thinned, the charm faltering just enough to reveal the steel beneath. Relate to me? Harry repeated with a short, incredulous laugh. Norah, I'm not an influencer begging for relatability. I don't need to be understood by strangers. Norah nodded once, quietly absorbing the arrogance in his tone. Still, she said evenly, public perception shapes legacy, doesn't it? He leaned forward, eyes sharp and unblinking. I didn't come here to be liked. I came here to be heard. There's a difference. And judging by how you keep circling the same questions, maybe that difference is lost on you. The words landed like a slap, measured, cold, deliberate. Norah held his gaze, her calm starting to crack. I'm not circling, she said, voice level. I'm giving you a chance to be understood, in your own words. Harry gave a quiet, bitter laugh. People always say that before twisting those words later. Norah inhaled through her nose, keeping her tone cool but clipped. Harry, I've interviewed presidents and generals who didn't assume bad faith with every question. Well, he shot back, maybe they had less reason to. A brief pause, tense, electric. Nora's eyes narrowed slightly. You know, she said slowly, you talk a great deal about compassion, fairness, truth, but the way you speak doesn't sound like someone interested in connection. It sounds like someone lecturing the world from a mountaintop. Harry blinked, caught off guard. A mountaintop? Yes, she said quietly. You speak down, not across. He gave a soft, incredulous laugh. Or maybe I've just grown tired of pretending everyone's on the same level. That did it. Norah's patience finally splintered. Her tone sharpened, no longer wrapped in diplomacy. You know, Harry, she said, her voice steady but cutting, you've spent this entire interview dismissing every question with a smirk. You talk about wanting to be seen for who you are, but you hide behind arrogance every time someone asks something real. You can't keep doing that and expect people to respect you. Harry's jaw tightened. Are you finished? Not quite, she said, the words cool and deliberate. You walked in here demanding respect before you even earned it. You treat honesty like an insult and humility like weakness. That's not strength, Harry. That's insecurity. He blinked slowly, the mask slipping for the first time. You sound like my therapist. Then maybe, she shot back, you should start listening. The silence that followed was total, thick, absolute. Even the hum of the studio lights seemed to stop. Harry's posture stiffened, his expression turning to ice. You know, he said quietly, this interview was supposed to be about my work, not your opinion of my character. Norah didn't flinch. Work and character aren't separate, she replied. They never are. He stood abruptly, the chair scraping against the floor. The microphone wire tugged at his jacket as he unhooked it. Then I think we're done here. Norah remained seated, looking up at him. If that's how you choose to end it, it's not a choice, he said flatly. It's common sense. He placed the microphone neatly on the table, straightened his jacket, and turned toward the exit. Good luck with your show, Norah. You'll need it. She exhaled softly, unblinking. And you'll need a little humility. Harry stopped mid-step, just long enough for the cameras to catch the flicker of anger in his eyes. Then he walked out, leaving the set in a heavy, echoing silence. The red tally light faded to black. The crew froze. Norah leaned back, the echo of his footsteps still hanging in the air. She rubbed a hand over her temple, drew a quiet breath, and turned to the nearest camera. Her voice was calm again, measured, steady, unshaken. Well, she said softly, sometimes honesty isn't comfortable, but it's still necessary. The screen faded to black. That night, the internet split in two, half calling her brave, half calling him misunderstood. But everyone agreed on one thing. No one had ever seen a royal exit quite like this. An interview that began with charm ended in chaos. Prince Harry walked off. Norah O'Donnell held her ground. And by morning, the moment had gone viral. An unforgettable clash between pride and poise.